So this is the biggest plots exposed by Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan is a cultural icon, being one of the most well-respected guys out there, at the top of his game in UFC, comedy, and podcasting. However, the brutal honesty,
Cerita into the meme.
the authenticity and energy that makes him so successful also brings with him some enemies. And when Joe has a problem with you, the whole world knows about it. Take, for example, Adam Conover, a
Oh no, this guy.
painfully unfunny comedian and TV host who really appeared to get in the host's nerves. Best known for his role
He's
in Adam
arguing about the masculinity or something.
Ruins Everything, Conover certainly ruined his reputation, or whatever little remained of it, when he appeared on Rogan's podcast back in 2019. When reflecting on this episode, the old phrase fail to prepare to fail springs to mind. That's because although Adam was eager to discuss numerous meaty topics, he was a little unprepared to defend his positions. The drama unfolded as soon as the two men started discussing transgender rights. Adam, very much a pro-trans activist, spoke in favor of giving children as young as 7 hormones.
You're seeing folks
Okay,
transition
this is kind of insane.
much earlier age. If someone is, transitioning from the age of 7 years old, right? Working with those hormones, from that age, right? They're not going to have,
I don't think gender produce any hormone at the age of 7.
their body situation is going to be very different than the one that you postulated, right?
Rogan pushed back.
I mean, there's been more scientific evidence that points that if kids don't do that, then when they wanted to be trans at an early age, they just become gay men. And that there's nothing wrong with that either. There's no reason to give kids hormones, and there's no reason to decide before a person's frontal lobe is completely fully developed, which doesn't even take place till like 25. People don't know who they are. A 7-year-old, you won't even. People don't even give their 7-year-old phones. You don't let them vote. You're going to let them decide what sex they're going to be for the rest of their life.
Adam gave anecdotal evidence, but not scientific evidence to support his stance, discussing a friend of his who believed it was only right to respect the decision of their young boy to identify as a girl.
Yeah, but if that's who they are,
Yeah, the transgender is a very small percent population, so don't think they've done very much study on it.
think that they're a girl, why do you
To
have
give
to
argument on either side.
give them hormones to make them more of a girl?
The two men also discussed gender in sports and the involvement of transgender athletes. Yet again, they proceeded to clash heads.
There's a reason why we make the distinction to have male athletics versus female athletics. The reason is that males have a physiological advantage over women. So in most sports, most physical sports, we do not have males compete with females. The question becomes when
ballet,
someone who is male transitions and becomes female, do those same physiological advantages apply?
And it became increasingly evident that Adam actually lacked any substance. He had no knowledge on anything he was talking about. His assertions that sports favored male bodies and that making slight rule adjustments could establish gender equality were met with a healthy dose of skepticism from Rogan. Adam just kept resorting to saying his trans friends, which seemed really insincere and only added to the overall confusion surrounding this whole discussion. Nevertheless, Adam advocated for co-ed competition
Next one, anecdote Andy.
as a means to address the apparent prejudice inherent in the current supposedly male-dominated sports system. But what Adam failed to point out was the very real physical differences between men and women, and these differences would likely create an uneven playing field, as almost everybody knows. I mean, a few years ago in the world of MMA, a trans fighter by the name of Fallon Fox broke the jaw of a biological female during a contest. The brutal beating was met with outrage and was discussed by Rogan on another episode of his podcast. Commenting on the incident, Rogan said, "She calls herself a woman, but I tend to disagree. She said she used to be a man, but now that she's had surgery, she's a transgender, which is the official term that means you've gone through, right? And she wants to be able to fight women in MMA. I say
Yeah, who not allows him to fight and her to fight on,
I say
I
if you
don't
had
know.
at one point in time, you also have the bone structure that comes with having a you have bigger hands, you have bigger shoulder joints, you're a f***ing man. That's a man, okay?" And although Adam did acknowledge his lack of expertise on the matter, he emphasized the importance of consulting transgender individuals to gain a more comprehensive perspective. But it didn't even stop there. The conversation just got worse and worse and worse. And one of the final nails in the coffin for Adam's reputation was when the men clashed over the idea of toxic masculinity.
When you look at the way that we bring up
Yeah, this argument is so bad.
men are socialized to not have close relationships with each other, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
Adam said that men are conditioned not to have friends, and this toxic conditioning was to blame for the loneliness epidemic and high suicide rates.
Researchers have found this, that little boys, when they're very young, are very close form very close friendships that are physical friendships. They hug, they'll kiss, they'll, kiss on the cheek, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll have physical close friendships like that. And then they reach an age where that starts to become not okay, right? Where it becomes, oh, that's not how boys act, right? And girls are still doing that with their friends. They're still holding hands with their friends. They're still, having close relationships like that. And boys start to build a little bit of distance,
I don't experience that. I most of my friends that I know have good male friends and are pretty tight with people.
Eventually, Adam, who was humbled and humiliated,
Yeah, I feel like this is anecdotal experiences.
left with his tail firmly between his legs.
Maybe there are some who feel lonely,
Since the
but
podcast, things haven't gone much better for Adam. His most recent project that Barack Obama directed, G-Word, was a complete flop. It saw the host desperately trying and failing to restore viewers' faith in big government. Adam, it seems, finally does ruin everything. Another person who was known by the days as Candace Owens. Like Adam, she
Climate
also knows what it's
change.
like to get a severe tongue lashing from America's most famous podcaster, who ended up getting in one of the most heated arguments in the entirety of Joe Rogan history. In 2018, the conservative pundit appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, and on the topic of climate change, she and Rogan had a big disagreement. In short, Rogan believed it was real, Owens did not.
I fell victim to the idea that, like, it was progress, it was progress, it was progress. We have to care about the environment. It was progress. And it's like, no, like, we've been losing. America has been losing.
You don't think we have to care about the environment? Like,
Not even a little bit. Like,
not even a little bit?
no. Okay, let me put
okay, they just
this. I don't throw trash on the ground. Like, I'm not saying, like, we need to, like, trash the environment. Like,
yeah, surely she didn't.
but do I believe in climate change? No.
Owens then proceeded to explain how the climate is always changing, and claimed that the Paris Climate Accord was just a way to extract dollars from Americans, an argument that rages all across America.
But this is an incredibly complicated subject.
Right.
And if you would have to talk to a bunch of different scientists and see how they gather data and see what they understand about CO2 levels and what's the danger of them
Right.
and what can combat it and what cannot. Have you done all this, or
No,
do you
so I
take
think-
this flippant opinion?
No,
based
No.
on
listen,
party
this is
line?
not.
Owens, obviously taken aback that she was now in a full-blown argument with Joe Rogan, claimed,
This wouldn't be the hill I died on, right? But it's not about. I just genuinely, I've read a ton about it, but
What
I
have
would
you
not
read?
be able to. I would not be able to come to you and say, like, this is my strong opinion. But here's, like, the easiest way to say this, right?
Okay.
The fact that there is a disparity in the science community about whether or not it's real is enough to.
Even a conservative Joe Rogan is blown up by this.
Little,
Yep.
very little disparity.
But-
Most scientists, the vast majority, agree that human beings are negatively affecting climate change.
Yeah,
The vast majority.
yeah. I just don't think so.
Joe Rogan keeps getting more and more irritated throughout this whole conversation about her misrepresenting the issue, and that the idea of climate change is not propaganda drummed up by some sort of big business. So Rogan asks her why she has such a strong stance on climate change. If you don't have a background in it, you don't understand the science. So Owens responded by saying she felt that the whole issue had been politicized, and this had prompted her lack of belief in it.
Yeah.
But don't say you don't believe.
Yeah.
Learn about it.
Yeah.
Learn about it and then have an opinion. But you're stating this opinion without having any real understanding
Right.
of what climate
Well, yeah,
science
'cause
is.
it-
Back when she appeared on Rogan, Owens was a rising star in the conservative space. Now though,
And just like Joe Rogan on COVID.
does seem like her star is dipping a little. Of course, she's not a flop at all by any means, and she's got her own show on the Daily Wire, but she is starting to find herself more isolated, largely because she has a history of putting her foot in her mouth. She once said that a certain someone from Germany was an okay leader until he tried to globalize, which many found questionable. More recently, she's had a bitter feud with Ben Shapiro, splitting her popularity within the conservative space, due to Owens' coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. Not to say Ben Shapiro or any of these other people are better, but she's definitely becoming isolated in the commentary space amongst conservatives, with Ben Shapiro blasting her quote faux sophistication about the conflict, with Ben also saying that her commentary is ridiculous and riddled with errors. But no matter what you think about this, someone who is truly despicable is Howard Stern, and he's possibly one of the biggest victims of Joe Rogan, arguably one of the biggest hypocrites in show business today, and one of the biggest supposedly victims of Joe Rogan. You see, the Howard Stern of today is very different to the Howard Stern of yesterday. Once a shock jock known for saying the most inappropriate things imaginable, Stern is now a changed man, or so he would have us believe. Last year on his podcast, he
Yeah, lying and
proudly
the
declared,
I am woke, motherfucker, and I love it.
commenting on Stern's supposed come to woke Jesus moments, Rogan stated that Stern was a pioneer.
He was the pioneer. And now he's woke.
Emphasis on the was. In Rogan's view, Stern used to be cool, but no longer is, which is definitely true. And Joe Rogan knows, as after all, his tumultuous relationship with Stern goes back decades. Back when Stern was cool, Rogan used to be a friend of his, often featuring on his podcast. In fact, the two men used to hang out and even frequented strip clubs together. But according to credible reports, a certain incident at a strip club would result in Stern believing that Rogan had misogynistic tendencies, in an effort to apparently embarrass the
yeah,
comedian.
suddenly there's a whole video on this.
Stern would call up a woman from Joe Rogan's past and question them live on air, trying to humiliate Joe Rogan publicly, and get progressive virtue signaling points from doing so.
Yeah.
What did you learn from Joe?
Well, after that wonderful one-night stand, I got pregnant, and I.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And the thing about it is you have to understand.
What?
Joe, you knocked her out.
Are you kidding?
You
me?
know, okay, but you have to understand.
Yeah, I don't know if the story is even true.
I never kept it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, an off-camera discussion between the two would result in the termination of their friendship. For Stern, he saw Rogan as the spreader of misinformation. I don't listen to Joe Rogan, he said. I know Joe from 100 years ago. We're not friendly any longer. We were friendly at one point, but somehow thought that calling up Joe Rogan's ex-girlfriend to talk about Joe Rogan's past indiscretions was a good idea. It seemed like they were destined to become enemies afterwards. Quote, Joe was a guest one time and I said something to him off air, which I don't go into, but he took offense, added Stern. I haven't heard or seen him since. I think he made the decision that I was toxic for him, and he probably was. And in recent times, their differing mindsets led to a big clash surrounding the pandemic, where Stern would voice his disapproval of Rogan's stance. Rogan, on the other hand, had always remained resolute and uninterested in altering his position. He was open to other ideas and wasn't going to let Stern get in the way of his success. However, Rogan's beef with Stern is just a little different to the previous ones, as Stern was never actually on the Joe Rogan Experience. But make no mistake, Stern is very much a victim of Rogan's, which brings us back to the hypocrisy point. As Rogan has noted, Stern has built a career out of ridiculing the very institutions that he now shamelessly supports, most notably Big Pharma and Big Government. Stern has become the very thing he used to mercilessly mock. He has become a caricature of himself. On the other hand, Rogan is in many many ways what Stern was in the 80s and 90s, original, funny, unapologetic, and beholden to no one but himself and his loyal listeners. Rogan and Michael Malice have rather accurately pointed out that Stern is one of the few media people who have gone from being completely red-pilled to becoming completely blue-pilled, from being an all-out James Dean-like rebel to a centrist, lockdown-loving snowflake.
He's the only person I know who's gone, other than Penn maybe, who's gone from being red-pilled to blue-pilled.
Yeah.
The class clown is now the teacher's pet, and the demise of Stern is as lamentable as it is laughable. But while Stern continues to fade into obscurity, Rogan's star continues to rise. At the height of Stern's career on terrestrial radio, he had as many as 20 million people tuning in each day to listen to his amusing ramblings. However, since doing a complete 180, listener numbers have dropped
he had a stay and success, so
dramatically.
I think it's alright.
Along with losing listeners, Stern has lost all of his dignity. He is now just a dinosaur from the past,
You can be relevant every single day.
representing
Come
an old,
on.
outdated media. But speaking of old media and embarrassment, it's time to discuss CNN and Rogan's much publicized feud with the rapidly sinking network, including a now legendary on-air with CNN's go-to doctor, Sanjay Gupta. In 2021, Rogan would invite Dr. Sanjay Gupta onto his podcast to ask him numerous questions, including why his network CNN repeatedly spread lies about his use of a supposed livestock drug.
Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
For the uninitiated, a few weeks before having Gupta on, Rogan tested positive for COVID. Soon after, he told his followers that he was taking ivermectin, a wonder drug that has saved the lives of millions of people.
We immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pack, prednisone, everything.
Although its ability to reverse the effects of COVID are up for debate, its history of helping humans recover from various illnesses is not. Yet that didn't stop CNN from constantly labeling the drug as horse
Yeah, why
dewormer.
would you take all that when you have the patient?
One of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses.
But when you have a horse deworming medication,
Ivermectin, apparently given to deworm animals.
Understandably, Rogan, who CNN happily portrayed as an ignorant buffoon, was outraged. When pressed on the matter, a clearly intimidated Gupta told Rogan his network should never have referred to the medication he took as horse dewormer.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing. That's a lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake. They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Why do you say that on the Reels Instagram?
About CNN's coverage, asking,
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network
was not-
lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude,
what did they say?
They lied
What
and
did they
said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, and
Of course, it's gonna depend. CNN, he works there.
obviously you got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that.
prior to Gupta's very public dressing down, Rogan took aim at CNN, asking a guest at one point if he should sue the network.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
A clearly angered Rogan asked, as they continually made compilations, doing everything they could to take Rogan off air, doing every cancellation attempt, making Joe Rogan trend on Twitter with everyone hating him around the world, trying to silence his voice.
They're making it up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. It's an American company. They won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for use in human beings.
Yeah.
And CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Yeah, what? So
They must know that that's a lie.
there's a lot of people saying it.
However, instead of offering an apology to Rogan, CNN instead chose to double down. In a statement to the Washington Post, the media network declared the only thing CNN did wrong was bruise the ego of a popular podcaster who pushed dangerous conspiracy theories and risked the lives of millions of people doing so. But Rogan clapped back, calling CNN dishonest and accusing the network of attempting to silence him and censor his show. He also called out Gupta's colleagues Brian Stelter and Don Lemon personally, saying,
And your show's f***ing terrible.
That's right.
Well,
They suck. They're
Brian
terrible at their
Stelter's
job.
show keeps slipping and slipping and slipping in the ratings.
He's the worst. And you know
Same
what
with
they
Don
do?
Lemon's the same thing.
They-
Everybody knows that they're not real. They're not real
Reaction and the
humans.
he even had to leave CNN. All of these people were declining because no one trusts them anymore. They're outdated, and everyone knows they're completely controlled and inauthentic. And it's safe to say Joe Rogan really isn't a fan of inauthentic people, and really helped to put the final nail in the coffin of CNN's reputation. And it's safe to say Joe Rogan really isn't a fan of inauthentic people, especially Candace Mencia, who's undoubtedly his most notable victim. An American comedian and much despised joke thief, Mencia is widely
Oh
recognized for
yeah, this guy.
his comedic style that delves into various subjects including social class, criminal justice, race, and culture. In 1988, the then owner of the Comedy Store played a significant role in propelling his career forward by advising Mencia to change his first name from Ned to Carlos.
But was it Mitzi Shore, who was the owner of Comedy Store, who said you should change it to Carlos?
Mitzi said, you can't be an angry Mexican named Ned.
This alteration was apparently aimed at attracting Mexican audiences in the Hollywood area. Mencia isn't Mexican, he was born in Honduras. His career started with a lie, and his life on stage would revolve around lies and deceit. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Mencia's comedy career flourished, highlighted by a highly successful tour in 2001 alongside Freddie Soto and Pablo Francisco, also known as the Three Amigos. However, unbeknownst to many of his fans, Mencia was not held in high regard by many of his fellow comedians. In truth, he was widely hated. The Wall Street Journal reported that Mencia, along with Jay Leno and Dane Cook, were among the most disliked popular stand-up comedians according to his peers. No one
Like Brendan Shaw.
was as vocal about the disdain for Mencia as Rogan. In 2007, at West Hollywood's Comedy Store, Joe Rogan would actually confront Mencia on stage, accusing him of being a notorious joke thief. But Joe Rogan would angrily recite numerous instances in which Mencia had shamelessly lifted the material of other comics.
You don't know that nobody supports it. You don't know that if someone steals a riff from a song, that's in the news constantly. Motherfuckers steal shit and make it on HBO. They steal shit and they put it on television. What do you say? I know you guys are acting like a little. No, I'm not saying that. Yes. They're not agreeing with you. They don't even know what the I do. They don't even know what
Yeah, speaking over and not giving him the mic is like a bit smooth.
Clearly shocked by this, by the fact that someone actually stood up to him, Mencia looked like a deer caught in the headlights, a kid with his hand firmly placed in the cookie jar. In a famous blog post, Rogan discussed the event and how he enjoyed calling Mencia Menstelia. That's the name we all call him at the comedy store, he wrote. And of course, Carlos doesn't like it. And to be fair, it's deserved. After all, a huge amount of well-respected comics would all come to side with Rogan in this debate. During a much-discussed interview with the earlier mentioned Howard Stern, the comedian George Lopez noted how Mencia had used some of his material during some of his HBO special.
George Lopez, is it true that you had to put hands on Carlos Mencia before?
That was a long time ago. I did.
He stole a joke or something?
1990. He stole one joke. It was a bit of a, he did an HBO thing and it had quite a bit of material.
In the world of comedy, joke stealing is considered a serious crime, and Mencia is still to this day viewed as one of the most serious offenders. So how did Mencia respond to this? Well, he doesn't really care. In I Am a Comic, a 2010 Showtime documentary, Mencia openly acknowledged that he not only stole jokes but also intended to continue doing so. Rather absurdly, he drew a parallel between his thievery and rappers sampling music tracks.
A lot of people out there are going to ask, why did they interview Carlos about this? Carlos is a joke thief. Carlos steals jokes, and we know this. And listen to me, and look at me when I tell you this with all honesty. If you think that I steal jokes, yeah, you're right. Of course I can steal jokes. Are you out of your f***ing mind? When I come to a comedy club, you better run. You better get the f*** off stage. Because if anything you say is even remotely funny, I'm going to make it mine. And all I'm going to do is say Mexican in the front. I'm like a rapper. I just sample shit and make it my own. Was that really my song? I don't know. But it sounds like mine. But it kind of sounds like somebody else's. It's a hit.
However, what he failed to mention was that all musicians, rappers included, must legally obtain the rights to copyrighted material for their music. They don't just straight rip off other artists in the comedy store. And because of his shameless stance with this, he's been shunned by the comedy community.
I mean, as long as you're not exactly ripping out things, fine.
Heard of this guy. His whole career was ruined. And in that moment when Joe
It's like a Madonna and ABBA hung up and gimme, I think.
everything would go downhill for him.
Yeah, I guess I would,